So the story has just gone up on Infowars.com. If you go to their Twitter page, they brag in Washington about attacking train tracks with concrete blocks that they form at the site for sabotage and derailment of trains. Here we endorse crimes, again in their own words, here we endorse crimes like pouring concrete on train tracks. We also include a how-to video at bottom of the article. Then we have Amtrak derailing onto the highway, killing at least 3 and over 80 sent to the hospital, crashing down into cars, and all of that horrible carnage. You have a criminal group saying, we derail trains. They were never busted. They never got in trouble because there's so many of these groups. Now this has happened, and I guarantee you mainstream media will attack me for even implying that Antifa would do such a thing. But they're prime suspects after infrastructure. One of our great producers out here, Daria, who actually did intelligence in the U.S. Army and Special Forces, ran in here and said, look at this. We've been looking at this for the last 30 minutes. It's confirmed. And this is breaking right now here on air. Because when I learned this news during the last break, my head exploded. Because I remember Antifa pledging all over the country, but especially in the Midwest and in the West, to derail trains in areas where oil field work is being done. And now, it's going down. .org has removed the article, but it is saved on archive.is. Olympia, Washington, train track sabotage to stop fracking equipment. And this is from just a few months ago on 4/20/17. Early in the morning on April 20th, we poured concrete on the train tracks that lead out of the port of Olympia to block any trains. This action was done to disrupt the movement of trains carrying parts used in natural gas fracking. And they go on to say, stop the 500 years of colonization and industrialization. This is basically communist Earth First type stuff. And they talk about staging more terror attacks. So the story has just gone up on Infowars.com. It has just been posted. Choosing sides, getting organized. And guess what? They have their little communist flag for Antifa and their black flag for no surrender. But guess what? Let's go back to the piece. Let's go back to their Twitter. They may have pulled the article off their site, but not their Twitter. Here we endorse crimes like pouring concrete on train tracks. We also include a how-to-do video at the bottom of the article. Imagine, these are people funded by the Democratic Party and Soros openly talking about how to sabotage train tracks, and they've now just pulled the article off their page, but not their Twitter yet. So we're exposing it all here. We've got a bunch of people dead, 80 plus at the hospital. The train goes off the tracks into the highway on Route 5, not out in the middle of nowhere, but right where Antifa would probably strike for maximum damage. Craig Sawyer joins us with some huge exclusive breaking news on law enforcement and military intelligence agencies around the Western world rounding up massive pedophile rings. So he's going to be joining us here in just a moment and be with us a little bit in the next hour. It hit me like a ton of bricks when I learned of this today, because I remembered news articles where Antifa, communist socialist groups funded by George Soros, were openly calling for sabotaging trains that were in regions where oil drilling or fracking was going on, and where I read on their own sites calls for attacking Trump Tower, Trump golf courses, you name it. They say violence is okay. If you go to their Twitter page, they brag in Washington about attacking train tracks with concrete blocks that they form at the site for sabotage and derailment of trains. Here we endorse crimes, again in their own words, here we endorse crimes like pouring concrete on train tracks. We also include a how-to video at bottom of the article. We're not going to show you the how-to video, but before they take it down as evidence, let's download it. Now, I remember all this. In the last 6 months, they've already derailed trains in Washington. So now they've pulled down the article, Olympia, Washington, train track sabotage to stop fracking, where they brag about derailing trains and how they're going to do it more and how they're training others how to do it. Then we have Amtrak derailing onto the highway, killing at least 3 and over 80 sent to the hospital, crashing down into cars, and all of that horrible carnage. You have a criminal group saying, we derail trains. They were never busted. They never got in trouble because there's so many of these groups. Now this has happened, and I guarantee you mainstream media will attack me for even implying that Antifa would do such a thing. But they're prime suspects after infrastructure. But this is simply amazing. And notice it happened in a very populated area, not on the rest of the scenic route. Perfectly placed for Antifa. So what horrible, horrible, horrible people that they've already done it. They videotaped themselves doing it, and it wasn't even national news. And I just saw it, you know, as a footnote and kind of mentioned it because we just are used to these bullies. It's like what they do. So the story is now up on Infowars.com. And again, headline, Antifa admits to sabotaging railways, trying to derail trains, and training others to do it in the very state where this just happened. Unbelievable. It's like somebody says, I'm going to attack the Empire State's Building with a dump truck, and then it happens. You are the suspect. Wow. So those stories are up on Infowars.com right now. We need to get this story out to everybody. In the last hour, we discovered, and I got so angry, I'd remembered that Antifa had said that they would attack trains and had attacked trains in Oregon to stop commerce in America. Well, guess what? It turns out there in the town where this happened, in that area, dozens were camping out there to physically stand in front of the trains, block the tracks, and sabotage it. So it's now, the media will try to cover this up, but Gateway Pundit hasn't. Until every officer is down, Antifa anarchists sabotage train in Olympia, have commune raided by police, and are camping on the tracks in multiple towns and cities, including where the train got hit. So, Craig Sawyer, you're a former counterterrorism guy and a federal officer. I want to get back in this segment and a few more with you into the new 2-hour pilot documentary film, Contraband, and the breakthrough stuff you're about to give us exclusively here about how you've gotten access to law enforcement, because none of the other media will cover it. That's why they brought you in, because they're scared, because I guess they're trying to cover it up. We've seen that. What do you make of this train derailment and the calls to remove Trump and Joe Scarborough saying get ready for a civil war as their whole Russia thing disintegrates?
I can't imagine any other country, Alex, where any of this would be tolerated for 1 minute. I would expect for there to be a massive law enforcement response to this. It's an act of terror. It's clearly an act of terror. My background's in counterterrorism. I know terrorism when I see it. I don't know why this is being tolerated. This should be answered with an overwhelming law enforcement answer, a swift one. This is just, only in bizarro world is this allowed to just fester and continue the way that it is. I don't understand it.
Absolutely. And again, they're on their official itsgoingdown.org site saying we've sabotaged trains. Here's the video of us doing it, and we're going to do it more. And then months later, in the very area, nothing's done. I mean, local police have been raiding them, but it didn't stop it. I mean, this is just insane. Imagine if they all strike across the entire country, as MoveOn.org and the Antifa groups are calling for, if Trump doesn't step down. I mean, I guess they're just going to burn all the train tracks, blow everything up, and then we're just going to let them do it. And just unbelievable. Well, we need to move against these.
Perplexing. Just ridiculous. This is a ridiculous situation. I'm waiting for the SWAT teams to descend upon those who are behind Antifa, the funding, the management. Who is it that are urging these misguided children, if you will, and young college students and just lost adults to go commit acts of terror against their own country? Why are they not behind bars for what they've done already? It's insane.
And I love how they demonize all industry as if it's bad, and then don't think if they put stuff out there, it's going to derail a passenger train with men, women, and children on it who are now dead. I mean, if indeed that's what this was. But they're saying attack it, so they're prime suspects.
Well, if you look at it from an adult perspective, it could only be an undeveloped mind that would come up with such a ridiculous notion to go blow things up and somehow think that it's going to improve anything. So I look at it more as a tactic by our enemy to try to divide and manipulate the weak-minded in the United States and misguide them against us.
Well, earlier we said that Antifa or ISIS would be the main suspects in the derailment in Washington State that's killed quite a few people and injured more than 80 as it came down onto I-5 and crashed down into the highway. A true disaster. Well, now we learn that in that very town, Antifa were camped out on the tracks, that in other surrounding areas, law enforcement had done raids on them in the last week trying to stop them. We now know on their own websites they had said that they'd carried out attacks. They videotaped the attacks and called for more attacks and were training others. And now the FBI is reporting, and Amtrak is reporting, as well as the Associated Press, that it looks like a track obstruction is what caused the train to jump off the track. Yeah, a big telltale was it was in a major city. See, 99% of it's going to be in rural areas on that route. But notice it's right there where a lazy meth head could just come up and obstruct the tracks. So, boom. This just went from them being the prime suspects to, we'll see if media tries to cover this up now. When you got a group in the area that's done it, says they're going to do it, and then they're saying it's an obstruction of the track, or they're looking at that, this is getting really bad. Craig Sawyer, any other comments on that before we get back into the film Contraland?
Well, on the Antifa thing and this train track, I'd like to be a fly on the wall in some of these meetings and listen to some of the news anchors on the mainstream news media and see if any of them care, if any of them get it, that they're refusing to tell the truth about that which is beneficial for their own country. They're actually part of the problem by giving Antifa a break and by spinning this and trying to make it look somehow okay. This is not okay. This is terrorism. We should all denounce it, including our mainstream news media outlets and anchors. So I'm personally curious as to what they think. Do they think they're somehow doing something good by giving terrorists a break against their own family and friends? It doesn't make sense to me. And
I noticed the literature of Antifa and Al-Qaeda when it comes to sabotage is basically identical. So ISIS or Al-Qaeda or somebody could have done this too. And you know, it could have been naturally occurring. A lot of the tracks are old, but they've been trying to update the tracks that have faster trains on them. And again, a slow train hits something, it's not going to be as dramatic as a fast train. What idiots. We're going to stop fracking, so let's derail a passenger train.
Well, I suppose they'd rather give the money to our enemies overseas, over in the Middle East, so that let's keep giving them trillions of dollars so they can spin up and bomb us with more sophisticated weapons. It's silly to see what it is that they choose to undermine.
They've all got cars and smartphones, and they bitch about an industrial civilization. We're one of the cleanest industrial countries in the world.
Well, there's a lot of disinformation, and that's why you've got these misguided youth. You know, they're the victims, unwitting victims of a propaganda and false rhetoric campaign, and an effective one.
I can't hear you. You're a f***ing anti-American. Oh, I'm an anti-American? Yeah. You stupid bastard. I'm a patriot.
I think we should classify them as a gang. You know, they come dressed in uniforms, they have weapons, they're almost a militia. I think we need to think about that in terms of our law enforcement approach.
We condemn in the strongest possible terms this egregious display of hatred, bigotry, and violence on many sides. On many sides.
Wait, on many sides? This was a white nationalist rally. You have to call that out by name.
Many sides? Mr. President, this is terrorism, not your order at KFC.
Prior to the unrest, police banned sticks, masks, and any other potential weapons. However, dozens of anti-fascist protesters broke those rules, it appears. They also pepper sprayed the leader of the Conservative group. One left-wing demonstrator attacked a photographer, and others reportedly threatened people who were trying to film the violence.
What about the alt-left that came charging at the, as you say, the alt-right? Do they have any semblance of guilt? Let me ask you this. What about the fact they came charging with clubs in their hands, swinging clubs? Do they have any problem? I think they do.
And they are just beating people, ganging up, men and women, ganging up on lone individuals and just beating them in a wanton, savage, brown shirt, Nazi operation.
They don't want to mention Antifa and how Antifa literally came trained, militarized, doing warlike maneuvers. You know, they bring coolers and you think, oh, it's to stay hydrated. No, it's filled with water balloons, filled with feces, urine, just disgusting things that will pop and explode on people. And water bottles filled with the same substances.
Chill out. Stop filming it. I don't like being filmed.
Then leave.
Yeah, he just got struck with pepper spray. By some irrational... I'm a liberal helping him. We're not all like this. No, you see, the guy that attacked him is not a liberal. He's a Marxist.
Every time one of these situations happens, you know, you see the worst of people sometimes. I think we saw it out of the left.
You just saw those videos of them chasing and beating people in black clothing, black masks. Over 100 of them broke through the lines and attacked stragglers who were there. For the most part, the event was shut down. They couldn't find enough conservatives, so they started attacking the police after a while. But you saw them beating the conservatives, even as they come in carrying no hate signs. And the mayor said they made sure the themes of love and compassion dominated over hate speech.
Nazi go home! Nazi go home! Nazi go home!
Supporters of President Donald Trump were vastly outnumbered by counter-protesters at Martin Luther King Jr. Civic Center Park.
But then we saw that group with the masks on. They had their own, you know, shields that they made, for lack of a better term. A huge crowd there now.
And while we certainly don't know, and we'll try to find out, some of those protesters, the ones that showed up with the masks and the shields, may do this in other locations. They may be what you call professional protesters who do this a lot.
That's an American flag that they have set on fire.
This Trump supporter was the first casualty of the day, with blood streaming out of his face.
Well, they wanted to hit me with brass knuckles on the blind side. We're here for free speech.
A mob chased him for a block and a half, took his flag, Trump hat, and glasses, and spat all over him.
You know, I'm okay with people making white supremacists feel unwelcome. I mean, excuse me, like, you're making me feel unsafe in my own country because I'm a Jew.
Listen, everyone said, oh yeah, you can't listen to CNN no more. You can't listen to the news anymore because it's all fake. Bull crap. It wasn't fake before, so why is it fake now?
The Russia story has kind of died down on those sites.
Only because we're on the racism thing now.
You heard it here first, and the globalists are already dreading it. It's the first annual Christmas Spectacular Extravaganza brought to you by InfoWars, and it's launching Christmas week, leading into Christmas. You know, Christmas is about Christmas. And to celebrate this, we've got the biggest sales in the history of InfoWars at InfoWarsStore.com. 50 to 67% off all our best-selling items and free shipping. A lot of these items, high-quality supplements, nutraceuticals, Patriot apparel, water filtration, you name it, is loss leader prices right now because I want to celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ and celebrate Western culture and celebrate the resurgence of freedom. So find out about the mega sales and special broadcasts going on this week only at Infowars.com/show and InfoWarsStore.com. Again, it is the Christmas Spectacular Extravaganza.